think there's 3 of us in the county, but you know, it is what it is. So a little history, kind of first about me. I got licensed in 1975 in Cleveland. After early 70s, I got a letter from the FCC from a guy out of Detroit, which was a field office for Cleveland. And I had a neighbor, WB8 MTR, that I showed my Kenwood 599 twins to, my station monitor, my, what goes an SB 2000 or some 2,000 watt amplifier, Moonraker for Citizens Van up on the roof. I had a beautiful station. Cork walls for, you know, for sound. And, you know, it was the typical letter. You know, we've searched your name and we don't find your name, and, you know, call sign associated with your name, blah, 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 blah. And we've been told you have the following equipment, and they gave a list. So a guy named John Adams. And so I write a letter back to him before emails and all that. And I said, well, John, in addition, or dear Mr. Adams, in addition to that, I have the following stuff. And I have I don't know, like 1 watt or 100 milliwatt or whatever you didn't need a license for. That was the stuff, and this was all SWL equipment. And so he called me. He says, you know, this is probably the best letter I've ever gotten. He says, look, he says, the bottom line is we've listened to you. He says, you make a great ham, but if we ever charge you, because I didn't have a CB license, you'll never get a license. And I went, oh, okay. So that's how I became a ham. And then from there, I moved to Indianapolis and was fortunate enough to get involved, just by luck, with the group in Indianapolis that put up repeaters. So in 1977, not being a race car fan, I drilled a hole in Bobby Unser's race car and mounted an antenna on it. We had garage parking passes, and he worked for Regency Radio. They were providing communication to the Unser racing team. So not being a race car fan, I mean, I am where the fans would have killed for. I'm in the Champion Spark Plug Hospitality Room. Another buddy of mine who was a ham played in the band at the start of the race. We got a police escort the day of the race. I mean, this was unbelievable. And then I moved out to California in 1979 and had a Drake UV3 and was thrown off every repeater in Northern California because they were all closed. And, of course, at the time, when I left Indy, I think there was maybe 2 UHF repeaters. And they weren't really closed repeaters. There were only 10 of us that had radios.
The beautiful lady of Dean's right there serving
one year at Dayton, we showed up with, I think they were HR 220 radios in a little pouch with a battery pack. Because we had the only 220 repeater in town. They weren't closed repeaters. In fact, we would love for hamvention to happen, and hams from Chicago and stuff would drive through and we get to talk to somebody new. So I moved to Concord because another friend of mine from Indianapolis moved there, W9HDR, Howdy Doody Radio. He since has passed away. But so that result was I got thrown off of every repeater, and then I met Ken Stroge. So he says hello to Mr. Metz. And
the rest is
live history. So analog radio, as we all know it, you know. So we had repeaters, and then we had linked repeaters. Of course, a lot of you guys are familiar with that. You got a system apparently that's all linked together on FM. I'm showing right analog, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. And then we got into digital with IRLP and Echolink and that kind of stuff, where you'd be able to connect to either another machine or that kind of thing, and the WIN system where you'd key up one radio and you'd key up 100, 1,000, whatever. Nothing really wrong with that, but that was a limitation. And you'd connect to a reflector, and then all that happened. So then in 2006, I got involved with D-Star as the number 4 system in the country. That was up on Mount Diablo. It was a full stack. Bought it coming out of the Dayton Hamvention. I was the BMOC, the big man on campus. And first guy to have 100 users, 200 users, 300 users, 400 users, and 500 users. And that got boring. And that technology is not a bad technology. But again, some of the beauties of that technology with the call sign routing, people didn't really end up doing it that way because it was difficult. It was great, if I wanted to talk to you and I didn't know where you were, but I knew your call sign, and you keyed up someplace in the country that had a D-Star system. I would magically route to you, and really I wouldn't have any idea what repeater you were on. I didn't care. But as soon as a third person got involved in the conversation, that became a little more difficult. And then that went through a couple of phases, and ultimately that became similar to what analog is, where you are connected to reflectors, and you've got, whether it's 30 Charlie or 14 Charlie or whatever it might be, and you got X number of stations that are connected to that. So in 2010, Greg and a couple of guys in the Bay Area who were also involved with D-Star at the time said, we want to get involved with this new technology, DMR. And did some research on that, and we got involved. And so DMR brings some stuff to the table for hams that's a little unique, and we'll try to go through part of that. In the room, how many folks care about really the technical stuff, the real technical stuff, how this stuff works? Okay, you're in the wrong room then. Because that's not really what we're going to talk about today. But we have a presentation for that that we did in 2011. Needless to say, this stuff works. And the networkability of this stuff is really quite amazing, and it goes through several metamorphoses, as everything does. And of course, hams will adopt this stuff and push the envelope, maybe more so than some of the commercial guys might, because we're interested in some other things, and God knows we'll end up putting Echo Link and All Star and who knows on this stuff as time develops, and there's some good and bad to that. So if I have my Vanna White, maybe hit a button. So this was put together for you guys. Now this presentation was put together by a guy that lives in Blackhawk. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Blackhawk, but Blackhawk is one of the most exclusive elements in Northern California. So this guy is certainly a multi-millionaire. He may be a multi-billionaire. I don't know what he does, but he makes a whole lot of money, and he's a professional presenter. So you got the second shift. So people say, well, what is Caldmr? First of all, when we got started in this thing, we didn't really have any vision of what we wanted to be when we grew up. We just said, well, let's get a repeater on the air. So there were two main groups at the time. There was DMR Mark, which is the Motorola Amateur Radio Club, their DMR division, if you will. And there's a thing called IP Site Connect. And IP Site Connect, in my opinion, is the secret sauce that makes DMR cool. And it's the backhaul, or the back end of this stuff, that gets rid of all the 420 linking and all the duplexers and all the stuff that you need to do in 420 to get your analog system to link together. And it basically does it over IP. And there's no tuning, there's no nothing. You just plug the cable in, and boom, it's done. The repeaters take about, after you've done them a while, we put up a lot of repeaters. I think our record, now the antennas were installed, the duplexers were tuned and all that. Just configuring the repeater and getting it up on the air and getting it on the network is about 6 minutes. So, I mean, it's real quick. There's not much to it. Really, all the magic really happens in the radios on this stuff. And really, it's just a transport system is what the repeaters are. So it's pretty easy the way it goes together. So we started off as NorCal, and we aligned ourselves with the two groups that were in business. Let's say DMR Mark and a group called Turbo 6. And Turbo 6, I've heard Dan Henderson from the league and I are pretty good friends. And Dan told me there's a joke around the league that says, what do you have in any town that has 3 or more hams? And the answer is at least 2 radio clubs. So the same thing happened. Is that in probably in 2008 or whatever, when the DMR guys started with this, there was a fractioning, and a group left, and they started their own deal, and now we have competing groups, and that's not bad. That's just what it is. So we said, well, we just care about Northern California, so we put together this network in Northern California, and the good and the bad of this for us is that PAVPAWS hit us about about I don't know, it was maybe 2007, 2008, something like that. So all the stuff on UHF, which is primarily where most of the heavy linking guys were, basically, crap to bed, because anything on the high mountain that's in the northern part of California. So probably from Mount Oso north, so Diablo, Mount Vac, all that. If you're on UHF, you're not going to be there. You have your receiver, but there's no transmitters. So we had to come up with a way if we wanted to do this, is to come up with a way of linking low levels, kind of the cellular concept, where we could reuse frequencies and that kind of stuff, and be able to have them all tied together. And of course, DMR is perfect for that. So we've been able to build up a network in Northern California that really has the connectivity and coverage that we want. And then the Central California group came in, and they were just part of NorCal. And then all of a sudden, Southern California gets involved. And Southern California came on like that, and all of a sudden, they're covering 14 or 15 million people. So as a result of all of that happening, we created Caldmr, and what is it? Well, it's a lot of things, and then it's not other things. So it's a C bridge. A C bridge is really a conference bridge that connects the repeaters together and expands the IP site connect capability to give a lot more functionality, so that you don't have every conversation that you have, you're transmitting to 1,000 repeaters across the planet, because these things are spectrally efficient, but probably not if you're using 1,000 repeaters for every conversation. It may be spectrally efficient there, but overall it's not. So talk groups, which are kind of how you route stuff and how you connect groups or clusters together. That's how you do it. It's a number, and you can associate a name with it. We've got websites. We've got an organization. We've become an incubator where we've reached out and helped people similar to what we're offering here, and we get them up and running, and many times they kind of go out on their own, which is okay. So we help the Texas guys and this, that, and the other stuff. It's a bunch of repeaters. It's rules. It's not rules. Hit the next slide. It's a club. It's not a club. So what we're not a club, and there are clubs within the organization, like the Papa Group in Southern California. They're a member of Caldmr, and they're a club. And we've got a couple of Baycom. There's a group out of the Bay Area. They've been around, I guess, since the 60s. And they're involved with DMR, and they're part of Caldmr, which is kind of an initiative. So we're not a rules body. We're not an enforcement entity. We're not any of that kind of stuff. And we're not exclusive. We're inclusive. Next one. Nope. Okay. It's an initiative. Go ahead. So it was founded by the following groups: Caldmr, the Papa System, CenCal, and Baycom. And then there's other people that have become affiliated with it also. Next one. So this is kind of the way this stuff works. So again, we've got C bridges, which again are nothing more than a software conference bridge. People familiar with All-Star? Yes? I mean, it would be similar in concept to that, but it's done at the DMR level. But as far as how it all works and all that kind of stuff, it would be similar in concept. It's the creation of a network infrastructure that's able to be managed in a way to route calls to one area, not another area, based on a specific talk group. And that's done ahead of time. You have to create all the infrastructure up front, and then the users get to use it and route it. But as far as the routes have to be predetermined. And then we've also got an audio stream. And in fact, one of the guys in the room said he's been listening to us for months. Who was that? This guy. And you still invited us. That really is amazing. So thanks. Go ahead. Next slide. So this is not really the way it started, because that's kind of the way it looks now in my garage. But the C bridge, the NorCal C bridge was a hardware device. It was on a little computer that sat in my garage because I got a good internet. We since have moved all this stuff off the data centers to cloud services, because the cost to do this, it's $10 a month or $20 a month for the stuff that we got. I mean, the bandwidth is unbelievable, and the reliability is there, and if something goes down, they're there to fix it 24/7. So this is the way my garage looks now. So the little box. Let's see here. Okay, so this is actually a C bridge. So this was the old hardware C bridge, which is now the virtual C bridge. That's in the data center. And this little box is a Barrett's box. So we actually take audio out of the C bridge, which we have a DV dongle, well, not a DV dongle, but it's a DVSI dongle from the vocoding people that produces analog, and we got that with a URI device. And we have an output of that basically goes into the Barrett's box that feeds a shoutcast server. So we wanted to present DMR audio really with the intention of people being able to listen to DMR audio and not have it sound better than it really did, and certainly not have it sound worse than it really did. Because we didn't want to have a false presentation of DMR. And this was ultimately the way we were able to do it, and it produces a pretty good audio signal. So go ahead, next. So at the regional groups, so these are the repeaters. I think there's, I don't know, 55 or 60 repeaters that are all part of this now. Next slide. And so talk groups. So now some of this is opinion rather than fact. I mean, you guys really can set this stuff up pretty much any way you want. But what we've been able to determine by looking, and you notice the pie chart, the circles that's over there. I got a software package. Greg and I went to IWC in 2010, and among the guys we met there was a guy named Ivan. Where would Ivan be from? Russia, right? Because everybody in
Fresno.
Fresno, right? And he works for a company called TurboNet. It's over in St. Petersburg, and so they make multiple products. They make an enterprise product that really could be sold to 911 departments or dispatch centers or whatever that does mapping and
that's what we use.
Yeah, okay, all that kind of stuff. And for hams, I mean, unless you had a real big IMCOM event, you probably wouldn't be involved in that. But they got another product called TurboNet Watch. And it does a lot of things, but what it does for us is it keeps real traffic count of how much activity percentagely is on one talk group versus the other. Because a lot of people have opinions. In fact, everybody has an opinion. Like other things that everybody has, right? And I don't personally like to make decisions or present people with opinions of things to make decisions, because if you have the ability to present hard facts, it's better to make decisions based on the hard facts. So this product's able to do that. So there's no magic to this. It just keeps track of it all. So what we've been able to determine is that what DMR is very similar to what FM is. When people got their IRLP connection, oh boy, was that used a lot. Right, but really what happens is what's happening in this room. Ham radio, not HF. That's a different issue. But VHF and UHF communication is all about this room. It's the local clubs, it's people that know each other, that communicate locally. So the idea that you would create this infrastructure that everything is sent all over the world all the time, in my opinion, doesn't make any sense. For the guy that is up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't know if there's anybody in this room that does that. I don't do that anymore. And has a few beers. I don't do that anymore. And wants to just rag chew. And you want to rag chew to some guy in the UK or Germany or whatever, the system can do that. But I think between the normal, what I would call normal hours, that 6 in the morning to 8 at night time period, most of the conversation that people really want to have is about local stuff. I mean, I know that when the linking stuff got together in the 80s, everybody in Northern California wanted to have a port in Fresno, and we wanted to link to Southern California, and we all did that. And there were probably, 19 or 20 systems that had these huge clusters of repeaters. And at from 6 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the morning, the drive time program, the people in Southern California really wanted to talk about their traffic. And guess what? The people in Northern California didn't care, and vice versa. So a lot of these systems didn't stay connected, and a lot of them split up completely. So that's what we're seeing in DMR. So the idea that talk groups would be forced upon this group doesn't make sense. I mean, to me, you're going to have a Nevada talk group. You're going to have a local talk group that'll just be the one repeater. And you could have that be your Nevada talk group today where there's only one repeater. But as you might build out a network, you wouldn't necessarily want to have every conversation tie up your network, the Nevada network, with every conversation. You'd want to take it in stages so that you can get better utilization of the infrastructure. Again, that's my opinion. If you wanted to have everything on all the time, you can do that too. But boy, there's a whole lot of traffic you're going to have to be forced to listen to that you might not want to listen to. In DMR, you have the flexibility to do either or both. And of course, you always have the big thing about DMR is there's 2 time slots, which means, how many people know the Bay Area very much? Okay, so you know the W6CX repeater, the MDART group, Mount Diablo Club? So they've had a feud with a guy named Wendell, K6POU, as long as I've lived here and before that. So what I told somebody that is really close with this, I said, so the idea, DMR, for instance, the same hardware, the same antenna, same feed line, the same per monthly fee to be on Diablo, both groups could be on exactly the same hardware, on the same frequency, never have to talk to one another, they could talk simultaneous and never interrupt each other. And it's like, bing, and the lights start to come on. That's what DMR is capable of doing. Now, that's not the way we're using it, but it's the way people could use it. So what we use is some groups, some time slots are the more local stuff. And of course, locals become more than local. But a local conversation would only go to the one repeater, and that would literally preempt and shut off the other stuff that's on that time slot, so that you're not worried about having somebody steal the time slot away from you. And then we go into like a club type thing, Cactus. How many people know about Cactus? Oh yeah. So Cactus has just gotten involved with DMR. We didn't know this, but the Armadillo Net or the Armadillo Group out of Texas was on the California Sea Bridge for a while. Not part of California, but we had extra ports, extra licenses, and so we loaned it to them, and they ultimately then created their own Sea Bridge and stuff. And then the West Texas guys, and both of those groups are part of Armadillo. So there's now a Cactus Talk group. Robin Critchell? That's his name?
Yeah.
Cutshaw?
No.
Star guy? No, it's another guy.
Okay.
Robin Critchell.
Critchell. Okay, he's like the head Cactus guy. He's also the
engineer.
Maybe he's the head of Scrubba, or he's on the board of Scrubba. They're involved in DMR now in Southern California, and in fact, we've got a couple of machines in California that are Cactus machines, and in fact, Mark's trying to get affiliated with them. And then from there, we use our time slot 2 to go to a California talk group that ties all of California together, and then Southwest and North America and worldwide. And then we also create push-to-talk channels that, let's say you would use California as a call channel that would key up every repeater in California. And let's say you were going to be, and let's say you couldn't do it locally because you wanted to talk to somebody that was in Southern California and you're in Northern California. Well, rather than tie up every repeater, we've gone to push-to-talk infrastructure that's like a conference line that's there that people can jump on as they want to. And all you do is push to talk. And that kills the California talk group on that repeater and connects it to the Cal 1, which is the push-to-talk channel. And then the 2 repeaters or a 3rd repeater or whatever would then join in. And now there's 3 or 4 or 5 or however many repeaters want to be involved in the call. They're now part of this cluster. And then when you dissolve it, it goes away. The timers exhaust automatically. And now California is back active on the California talk group. So that's the way we choose talk groups. Go ahead, next slide. So it's information source. This is all Kurt's doing. So I'm sure you guys got a website. You got pictures of what? You probably have pictures of your repeater sites, of the equipment and the guys climbing the towers and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's normally what people do. And Kurt said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to show the views from the sites, not the stuff. I mean, everybody knows what a repeater looks like. Who cares? You could have 100 slides that 100 different repeaters. You know, they're all kind of going to look alike. So these are the views from the various mountaintops, and these things scroll on the website. He's really done a fabulous job. And this was his first website that he ever put together. Next slide.
What was that? Mount Diablo.
That was Diablo. No greater mountaintop than Mount Diablo. T6 JSI. Anyway. Sorry, this goes back years. But this is the last call or the last word report. So this will come up and will show real-time activity if people keying up. So the guy over here is, he now has, and there's another group that keeps track. DMR Watch keeps track of the most active users. The guy here in the black shirt, he has become the most active user on DMR for today, for this 24-hour period, because he's in Nevada. So you guys are now on the map. Go ahead, next one. We helped pioneer the sea bridge. He took a little exception to that. We were the first guys that actually ordered one commercially. We're the first guys that paid for one. I think DMR Mark really helped with the development of that stuff. And a lot of the community that bought this thing, the sea bridge has become a much bigger device, much more important device in the infrastructure, much more useful device than really the developers ever thought it would be, because of what the hams wanted. And of course, they also see, well, there's some commercial applications for that stuff too. So it's the smart PTT and TurboNet. Just a side note: in May, the wife and I went on a cruise to the Baltics, and in fact, we were in St. Petersburg when Putin was there with his economic summit. So the town was a mess. And I had never been to St. Petersburg, but Ivan, the guy from lives there. So on one of the days that we were in port, we got together for lunch with his wife, and his kid, and they took us on a little riverboat tour. They have canals similar to Venice, but they're wider, and they go all over the city. It really is a beautiful city. And the amazing thing is, they say it's all this history, but this whole city was destroyed in the Second World War. So all this stuff was rebuilt to look like it was built in the 13 and 1400s, but it really was built, this century or last century. Next one. So we partnered with Rayfield actually to develop this, and this is really a subset of what is called the Net Watch. So it had a lot of information that the typical user really didn't want to look at. It would, be too many questions. So this is what you'd see. Next one. One of our guys, in fact, at 9 o'clock, DMR Mark does a worldwide net. Goes on for about an hour and a half, and they start over in Europe, and they take people check-in, and they get, 170, 180 check-ins from literally around the world, and it's fun to listen to and be part of. So next, we came up with the best practice guide.